Hello and welcome to this special interview on ET Now. I am going to be in conversation with the Union Minister for Power, Mr. RK Singh. Thank you, sir, for giving us time.
Thank you, Nandar.
We are, of course, in the national capital where the mercury is going up, up, up. Unprecedented heat wave, which has also led to electricity consumption going up. Sir, I want to first begin by asking you about something that we've all been talking about. I'm going to get to the reforms. I'm going to talk about the last 8 years of the Modi government. But for now, all the viewers tuning in. Sir, is there a coal shortage in the country? Everyone says that maybe there is only critical shortage left of 6 to 8 days. We heard this in October 2021. You solved the problem, so I thought it's best to ask you.
Nandar, what has happened is that the demand has gone up on a day-to-day basis, and this will give you an idea. On a day-to-day basis, the demand is about 40 to 45,000 megawatts more than on the corresponding day last year. That's the increase in demand. 40,000 to 45,000 megawatts more than on the corresponding day last year. In energy terms, the demand has gone up by 1,000 million units per day. That means earlier, my demand, the same day last year, for example, the demand was in the region of about 3,500 million units. Today, or yesterday, against 3,500 million units on the corresponding day last year, it was 4,800 million units. That's an increase of 1,300 million units per day against a total supply of 4,800. That's an increase of 1,300. That's an increase of a whopping 25%.
Correct.
That's the increase in the power demand. And the coal supplies have increased, but there is a gap. There is a gap between the coal which is consumed on a daily basis in the power plants and the coal which is arriving. Now, that gap has to be met by imports. Yeah. So, that is what we have told the states to do, and that is what the Coal India Limited is also doing. They are importing coal to make up that gap. As of now, our coal stocks, in power plants would be about 22 million tons, including both imported as well as domestic coal. So, now would I have been happier with a larger stock in the power plants? Yes, I would be, but this is still a reserve stock. You see, what happens is that we use coal on a daily basis. The coal arrives on a daily basis through rakes, and we use that coal. And this stock is kept so as to make up any shortfall in daily arrivals. And if the arrival is more than the consumption, then that goes on to add to the stock. So, as of now, that is the situation. What I am looking ahead, the challenge will be in the months of July, August and September. And in the rainy months, the coal supplies from the coal mines come down. So, whatever stocks we build up is to meet that period, because the coal supplies will come down.
There are reports which suggest that nearly 57%, let's say 60% of the operational power plants have critical coal now only for 6 to 8 days. Is that correct, sir? And are we on track, whether by imports or other ways, to make sure there is enough?
You see that 6 days or 8 days is rather deceptive. If you go by days, it depends on how much you are consuming per day, what is the demand per day, so it varies. But by and large, we look at it on an average. Right now, the overall stock in the country is, let's say, 22 odd million tons. My daily consumption is about 2.25 million tons. So, that makes it about 10 days. So, but now normally 10 days would be a happy stock, that is reserve stock.
Yeah.
See, that is reserve stock, because the daily consumption is matched by daily arrivals.
Got it.
So, I consume about 2.2 million tons daily.
Yeah.
And the arrival is about that much every day.
So it's making up.
And this is a reserve. But this reserve is important. It is important because the rainy season is just around the corner.
We have shortage of rail racks also.
The rainy season is just around the corner. and the rainy season, that stocks, the arrivals of coal will come down.
Correct.
So I will have to fall back upon my reserve stocks, which is at 22 million tons. So I want to build that up. That is where we are at. And for this, in order to make sure that we have enough stocks to last us the rainy season when the domestic supplies fall, we have asked the states to import. We have asked the Coal India Limited also to import, so as to make
yes,
up.
they're importing for
They
the
are
first
importing,
time
yes.
in over a decade.
Yeah.
And so they're going to have to import at a time when we've seen what's happening with commodity prices, with coking coal as well. What's going to be the impact of that on power generation, on electricity, and of course the consumers, whether it is industry or individual users?
Basically, up till now, we've met the demand. You know, any shortfall which has happened is just about 0.3% or 0.2%. That's it, which is nothing. And that also is system constraints in particular states. So we've been meeting the demand, and we'll continue to meet the demand. Now, if you are asking about what will be the impact of imports, I presume what you mean to ask me is whether the price of power will go up. Is that your question?
Yes.
Whether the price of
Yes.
power will go up because
Yes.
of the imported coal being costlier. Yes, it will
Far
go
costlier, far more costlier.
yes, of course it will go up. So, but it is going to go up by just about, let's say, 40 to 50 paise per unit. So, if right now the total cost of power per unit is, let's say, about 3 rupees 50 paise, it will go to 4 rupees. Now, that I believe is a small price to pay for ensuring that there is no blackout. I would rather buy power at 4 rupees per unit than have any blackout. And incidentally, you know, when there was a constraint, when there was a crunch, people were, discoms were buying power at 20 rupees per unit in the exchange, remember?
Yes.
When I capped it, brought it down.
You've capped electricity contract price at 12 rupees a unit. Minister sir, is there a need to review that cap?
You know, I thought
I
about
also ask you this, I'm sorry for interruption, because the common man is also burdened by inflation, by Mengai. That's the reason also I'm asking.
Now, you see, that cap, we must understand what that cap is. You see, there is an exchange. So, what happens is that most of the power requirements, in fact 99% or 90% of the power requirement is met through long-term power purchase agreements which the distribution companies have entered into. So, that is at fixed rates, etc. Now, there is some gap for meeting the peak requirements which the distribution companies do not enter into power purchase requirement agreements on the long term. They want to rely on the market. That is that exchange. Now, in that exchange, the price varies depending on the gap between supply and demand. There was no cap earlier, so the cap was in fact 20 rupees. So, when this crunch happened, the price of electricity on the exchange went up to 20 rupees. That meant on the exchange what gets traded is, as I told you, 9 to 10%. So, for that the price went up to 20 rupees. Now, I thought that 20 rupees was high. I thought that people were sort of making money. So, I gave a direction to the Central Electricity Regulatory Authority Commission that you cap the prices, bring it down from 20 rupees to 12 rupees or less. They brought it down to 12 rupees. About a fortnight back, I asked the ministry to see whether we can bring it down further. They examined it and they said that it is best not to bring it down further, because then what will happen is that then we will be ruling out the electricity generated from imported coal. So, then we will be reducing the size of the market. So, we have left it at that. But that, as I said, that is only when that is only for a certain very small percentage of our consumption. Most of our consumption is through PPAs, long-term PPAs.
So, in October what we saw was, and the halat was very different in October 2021, is different now because of coronavirus. Because of the shortage that we had, there was diversion from the industrial sector to other sectors. Now, is that something that you can afford to do this time round?
You are talking about diverting coal from the industrial
Yes.
sector to the power sector. Now,
because the situation is different now.
you see, there is no diversion of coal from the industrial sector to the power sector.
Reprioritization.
What would have happened would have been, what did happen probably was that that the railways will be able to tell you, was that the rakes were giving a higher priority to supplies for the power sector, because the power sector is the most essential industry. If you don't have power, then lifts won't run, then the hospitals, the critical care systems won't run, ventilators, etc. won't run, nothing will run.
Correct.
Your defense radars won't run, nothing will run, because everything runs on electricity. So that, the reprioritization of rakes, availability of rakes would have happened for a brief period. Railways will be able to tell you. But I think that is something which every country will do and does. They prioritize. If it comes to the crunch, they prioritize.
Fair point. So there have been certain reports, I thought I might as well just ask you straight up. One, that the government may look at reviving defunct power plants, may even ask the RBI to help with certain norms so they get working capital to just get these power plants going. You started the interview by talking about the unprecedented electricity demand. Is that something that is being looked at?
Yes. In fact, we have had meetings with the banks. You see, there are some power plants which are in NCLT. So we had especially imported coal-based power plants. Now, imported coal-based power plants are important because they take the burden, they reduce the burden on domestic coal. As I said, the domestic coal supplies are under stress compared to the demand. So imported coal is important. So we had that meeting. So the bank said that yes, so they'll come forward and make sure that these plants also become operational. So that progress is happening. I'm reviewing it. The present situation is that out of 17,000 megawatts, 17,500 megawatts of imported coal-based plants, about 13,500 megawatts are now operational, running, and declaring capacity. About 1,000 megawatts will not run because they are in a bad shape. That NCLT process is such that they will not be able to run. But the remaining are in process. So by and large, we've got the majority now running.
But sir, how will you do it? If it's in NCLT, some bidder has to come, the IBC
No,
code
the way we
follow.
worked it out was that you have the NCLT and now it is idle. So the NTPC will be asked by the committee of creditors to run it, and whatever surpluses are generated will of course go to the creditors. That is how it will be.
And these are primarily thermal based only, not.
They are thermal based units. That is one. The second thing is that we have about 8,000 megawatts of plants which do not have PPAs and which do not have coal. So what we are going to do is we are going to ask all the states whether they need more capacity, and whatever demand the states give, that will be aggregated, and then we'll hold a bid based on tariff. So whosoever offers the least tariff, they'll be sort of given PPAs to these states, so they'll get coal also. So that way we'll be bringing more capacity online, more coal-based capacity online.
So the last energy shock we had was 7 months ago. What is the plan to make sure that maybe 6 to 7 months from now, and I don't come to interview in 2023 asking similar questions about coal
See,
linkages?
basically it's a question of the capacity we have. You see, it's a question of the availability of coal. We can generate power. The question is of availability of coal. As I said, our coal requirements are of the region of about 2.25, 2.3 million tons per day. That is the quantum of coal which is required by the power plants on a daily basis. When the supplies from the coal mines fall short for whatever reason, then we have a problem. And the Ministry of Coal are taking steps to increase their production. There is another thing which we need to take note of actually. Traditionally over the past decade or so, coal has been imported for blending. The imported coal has a higher GCV. Now, so coal has been imported for blending, that is one category. Then coal has been imported for imported coal-based plants. We have some plants which are based entirely on imported coal, as 17,500 megawatts. So the average imports would have been in the region of 50 to 60 million tons per annum.
Yeah.
Out of which about 20 to 25 million tons was for blending with the domestic coal, and another about 25 million tons to 30 million tons was for imported coal-based plants. Now, suddenly, because the imported coal prices went up, the import of coal dropped down from, let us say, 23 million tons in 2018, an example, to 8 million tons last year only. So, that is a drop from 23 to 8, that is a drop of 15 million tons. So, that was another reason why you had this much pressure on domestic coal. So, that that's what I have communicated to all the state governments and state GENCOs, that you need to continue importing for blending as you were doing earlier.
Fair point.
You don't think that you can stop the blending and ask the domestic coal to take up that burden. So, if that continues again, I think will be fine. And in the meantime, Coal India Limited is trying to ramp up its capacity. There are also some requirement of easing some, some area routes, railway routes are clogged. They need more rakes, but the tracks are clogged because there is too much traffic. Additional tracks have to be constructed. So, these are problems of development. So, those additional tracks will enable additional rakes to go in and evacuate coal. So, there are some problems about coal being available in some pockets, but not being evacuated because of this constraint in evacuation. So, that is another problem which we have as a country to solve.
So, the other one, of course, is the buzzword which was there during coronavirus, which was ESG, going green. We saw the higher entry barrier globally. And as I come to an end to this interview, sir, can I ask you this one question? 8 years done of this government, going forward, ambitious target when it comes particularly to the renewables. And is India an outlier in the sense where it's staying committed to renewables, where the rest of the world we are seeing a resurgence of the fossil fuel energy?
India is not an outlier. You see, India sort of walks its talk. Yeah.
Because there seems to be backtracking by other
no. So, we believe in the environment. That's our government believes in the environment. That's why we have the fastest growing renewable energy capacity in the world. And
you've done an open access reform.
Yeah, and open access reform. But we have, even before that, we have had the fastest growing renewable energy capacity in the world. We are proud of that. We had pledged that by 2030, 40% of our capacity, power generation capacity, will come from renewables. We achieved that target 9 years in advance. We achieved that target by November 2021. Now, I'll tell you. So, one, of course, is the environment, the climate. The other is that we are a rapidly growing country. Our rate of growth in the last quarter is 8.7%. We added 2.86 crores new consumers. Now, to meet their requirements, it cannot be entirely on coal. We'll have to go in for non-fossil fuel, both from the point of view of the environment, also from the point of view of capacity. Yeah.
With that, sir, I'd like to thank you